coffee on his lap, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight, fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance, Fluffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No soundbites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
And welcome to another episode of the MatthewJ Show. So glad you could join us tonight on a beautiful night here in Philadelphia. Nice little wind out. Was walking around a little bit before I start the podcast with our guest Michael Vass tonight. But just a splendid Friday, and hopefully our weekend's going to be just as good. Michael Vass, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. It's a little more humid here in New York. We're getting that fake second winter kind of summer, fake second summer. They used to call it an Indian summer.
Yes.
And so usually this is the last week of September is usually when we get it. And then that usually means snow in like the first week of October. So that just tells you where we're going.
Yeah, it was muggy yesterday here, Michael. I mean, it felt like Tampa here in Philadelphia yesterday. And because I did my walk, and I know I never have that much sweat after a walk, but I certainly did yesterday. Now, Michael, I think you were on a few weeks, I think it was last month you were on with it. So obviously a lot of really earth-shattering events occurred, particularly here domestically, and we're going to get to that. But what I'd like to do here, Michael, initially to start the show off is something that's really kind of pissed me off in the last couple of hours. And that, of course, is what Prime Minister Starmer is doing in the United Kingdom by introducing digital ID. Now, Michael, I have to ask you, I know you're well-versed on this, and you know, listeners to the MatthewJ Show, this is a big topic with me. Do you believe, Michael, this digital ID is going to be a slippery slope into the social credit system and things like that? Is this a bad thing for the residents and citizens of the UK?
For the UK and the United States and Canada, yes, it's a very bad thing. This is how you get into how authoritarianism gets a root and grows. To make it really simple, so I've been doing political commentary now, for your audience knows, for anyone who's new, 20 years. And I cover international as well as domestic United States. So I've been following this. This didn't start with Starmer, the Prime Minister of England. This has been happening slowly and consistently since about 2016. You remember, where did we learn about Jordan Peterson? Though that was in Canada. Why? Because they had Bill C-16, which had compelled speech. Now, that compelled speech was already happening in England, and that shifted over to their quasi, it's kind of like a commonwealth to England, is Canada.
Yes.
And They then adopted the policies in England, and then we started seeing that come into colleges here in the United States. They started adopting that same thing, and we started seeing that in about 2016 and 2018. We saw a lot of protests across, because you have to, that's when the whole pronoun movement really started.
Yes.
So this has been working. And so when I say this is going to affect America as well as the United Kingdom, that's how the chain works. It's in England and in Europe to an extent. Then it comes over, you see it in Canada, you see it then go into the education system here in the United States, which then filters into a generation. And we see 5 years later, now it's widespread, there's protests about it, and it's changing our lives. Now, the digital ID itself is authoritarian. Let me be very clear about that. And it, like everything that has ever been done by government, it's going to protect you. It's good for you. Of course, they're going to help you. This is to protect you from online identity theft, to protect children. The fact that now the government will be able to follow each and every single person. No one is anonymous anymore. No statement, especially political statements against the government, none of that is private anymore. It's no longer anonymous. Now they know exactly who said what. Remember, in England right now, they are running through the podcasters, comedians, anyone who says something that isn't the approved message is getting arrested right now in the United Kingdom. And they're trying to arrest American citizens as well. And by the way, Keir Starmer, you suck. Come over here and you can suck my black penis, because screw you. Come to America and try and arrest me. I dare you. Come to the Bronx and try and arrest me.
Michael, let me see if I'm getting this straight from you. Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying that, hey, good old MatthewJ or Michael Vass is vacationing over in the UK. We're on our laptops, tweeting away, posting away on X, that we can be subject to arrest as American citizens?
They would try to arrest you as an American citizen, and it's not because of us tweeting or any social media. It doesn't matter which one, whatever platform you want. And it doesn't matter if you did it just then, it could be pre-existing. So if something I said 10 years ago, something I said 5 years ago, something I said 5 minutes ago can get me arrested if I were to touch their soil, and they have threatened. The police chief of London has threatened to come to America to arrest American citizens on American citizens' soil for crimes in the United Kingdom. Now, he's backed off of that because that ain't going to happen, but that is the threat. Now, when you take that mentality, which is ongoing as we speak, and it is only getting worse, and then you add to that mentality the power of the government to track every single person. It is, and this is a mandate. It's not an option. It's not a choice, because unlike the United States, they don't have a freedom of speech. They don't have freedom like we do here in the United States. England may be more free than most of the world, but they're nowhere near the United States. So you don't get an option there. They said this is going to happen by 2029. By 2029, we're talking 3.5 years. It will be a fact. It's not even it's not an option. It's not a choice. It is a fact for the British citizens. The government will have all of their IDs, no matter what platform, no matter what they're going on. Your kids are going on to play Roblox. Yeah, the government's going to know all their accounts.
Michael, let me stop you right there, Michael.
Yeah.
Are you kind of suggesting, or do you subscribe to the line that the U.S.-UK special, their quote, special relationship is over? They're arresting their own citizens. And by Tucker Carlson came out with a stat, I didn't know this, in 2023, over 12,000 were arrested for posting social memes or whatever on Facebook and other things in the UK. Mm-hmm. Do you think when Trump was over there last week or 2 weeks ago visiting the royal family, do you think he conveyed that to Starmer, like, what the hell's going on? And like you said, Michael, and this is the headline of what Michael Vass is saying, we are subject to this. U.S. citizens are. So, yeah, this is going to, whether you think peripherally is affecting us or will be directly affecting us.
Well, it's kind of like, again, how this affects American citizens. In the United Kingdom, they just last month, they passed the Online Safety Act. And that forced YouTube, among other online social media, but YouTube in particular, was then forced to create the AI age verification that's being used in the United States, which we have now seen coming from the biggest red letter media, some of the biggest YouTubers that have nothing to do with politics. They have a remarkable reduction in the number of their views. People are finding out that there's a restriction for every account on YouTube that is turning on automatically by the AI because they randomly decide that you are underage and deny you the ability to go to your favorite channels. And even if you can see your favorite channel, they hide the content on there based on what YouTube decides is objectionable, not you. And if you want them to stop doing that, you have to give YouTube your credit card. Now they say, oh, a state ID, government ID, and or a credit card. Now that should stand out for most people. Why do they want your credit card? As proof of identity. A credit card doesn't have my photo. It doesn't have my personal identification. It's not verified by anyone. I mean, you can get fake credit cards all the time. People can steal your identity all the time. Why would they want a credit card? Because it's not about ID. It's about control, and it's about marketing your name to other advertisers so they can sell your information. And again, so it's two things. It's control. You will obey, and you will watch the things we want you to watch, or you will give us your freedom, your personal private information, so that we can make a profit off of it, and then you can do whatever you want until we change the rules again. And this was started in England, and of course it was about protecting kids from online predators, and it's only been applied to adults.
Right. Well,
and
Michael,
that's happening here in the United States.
Michael,
this is why this is dangerous.
No, I'm glad you got that out there. Well said, Michael. I think, if I'm wrong, correct me on this. The more sinister applications of the digital ID, and if it's a permanent thing, will be anything, medical information, law enforcement information, and you're saying buying information. Everything will be contained in your digital ID. And I think, if I remember correctly, because, I travel back and forth to Ireland, an Irish citizen also, that most of the EU will require that you have this digital ID to fly within the EU. Mm-hmm. So I think this is like, people think like, oh, well, it's only going to go as far as the digital ID. I don't know what you're all worried about. No. It's they're getting this, Mike, onto the radar.
No, think of it as for a lot of younger people, think of it as a blockchain. Okay. Just like crypto, which if you have a crypto, that is a blockchain. It is every purchase that is made with that crypto, whether it's a unit or a piece, whatever it is, right. Every purchase and everyone who touched that token is included in there. So I can track everywhere that token has been, everyone who has used it, everything that has been purchased with it. The same thing is happening with the digital ID. They will be able to track everywhere you've been online, everyone you've spoken to, and it's relatively simple at that point to find out everything that you have said and or done. And I'm not talking about something like, oh, you were on a dating site because you're single, or maybe you're married. Okay, that may be embarrassing. You're not thinking it all the way through. This is everyone you've ever talked to. So someone you talk to is, as an example, you came and you're watching my YouTube channel. You're watching a speech by the president of the United States, any president, on the State of the Union. You are talking to your friend or a kid who just turned 18 and it's the first time they're going to vote. And they ask you, gee, how do you vote? What do you vote on? Anything as simple as that. Now, all of a sudden, the government has that information. And if they don't like it, well, they can be like Lois Lerner. Remember that? Under the Obama administration, one of his multiple scandals that he now says don't exist. In his most recent speeches, he's been talking about there was no problem under the Obama administration. Yeah. Liar. Rewriting history. Lois Lerner. She abused her position based on the power of the Obama administration to persecute conservatives. Lost her job. Her team lost their jobs eventually. But yeah. And now you have these low-level or mid-level government operatives, individuals who are now going to have access to all of your information, and their personal partisan preferences will now decide what happens to you in the future, the next job you go to, the next promotion you get. Are you going to be getting an audit because of your taxes? How your credit rating will be affected. It affects everything. That is the social credit system from the CCP. And that's how people, when you hear people say, well, it's just like the Chinese social credit system, this is how it's like that.
Michael,
this is how it operates.
Mike, what you're envisioning here, what you're saying is happening is diabolical. But my next question to Michael Vass is there any way, do you see any pushback from the British public? Can there be a no confidence vote? And maybe somebody like Nigel Farage coming in and saying, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna stall this digital ID." Do you see any of that happening in the UK, or are the globalists going to get their wet dream here and implement it?
Well, yes, I think you could see Nigel Farage become the next prime minister. I do think that we're getting very close, and we should have already been there, to a vote of no confidence in Keir Starmer. And here's the thing. Starmer's already enacted this program. It's already there. He's already put the initiative forward. It's going to move forward to 2029. So Nigel Farage is now trapped. It's like any president. You come in after the last guy, all of his policies are still running. And like most things in the United States, most government, they don't end any of the programs before. They just add on new ones. You just add on new laws. You don't get rid of the old stuff. You don't get rid of the old regulations. So what I would like to see is Nigel Farage with the Reform Party or anyone over in the United Kingdom, and this is good for the United States as well. What they should say is the next person in charge says, great, here's your two choices. We can either enforce this, and by the way, you intended it only to be used against your enemies. We're going to use it against you as well. And matter of fact, you're going to go to the top of the list now, and we're going to use it against you. Or if you don't want that being the focus of this law you passed, then you can help us repeal it. It's one or the other. Either we're going to repeal it, or you are now the top of the list of the targets to be investigated. And when I say you, on the top of the list, I mean the elected officials. I mean the party heads. I mean the major donors to those parties. You're the top of the list. Every one of the applications of that law is now going to be applied to them first, and then to everyone else afterwards. I'm not saying that it's going to be unfair. If they broke the law, they will be the first ones to feel the force of that law. Or they can help us repeal the law because it's not fair to anyone. Right. Let's make it as fair as possible.
That's a good roundup of that, Michael. I'm glad you got that out there. I wanted to make sure for our audience because according to X Analytics, after the United States, the UK and Ireland are my biggest listeners. So I'm glad you got that out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure some of the British people are certainly saying Michael Vass makes a lot of sense. And some of the liberal scum over there is probably saying, I don't like what Michael Vass is saying, but it doesn't matter.
Report me. Please do. Report Michael Vass, MV Consult on X, no sound bites allowed on YouTube and most other platforms. please, if you're in the United Kingdom and you hate what I'm saying, come after me. I dare you. I dare you.
Now, Michael, we've got a lot to go over here, as I was mentioning earlier in our conversation. I want to move back here stateside into a report that has been leaked in the last 24 hours, supposedly. I don't know if it's an FBI memo leak, but they're finally acknowledging that there were 274 plainclothes agents at J6 monitoring things. Now, I don't know if you remember, but Christopher Wray a few years back said, oh, there might have been a dozen or two, but I don't know. And I think he should be dragged in also, like Comey is too, for potential charges for lying. Michael, do you think not just the 274 undercover that they're acknowledging, and I think there were more, that there were other federal agencies, entities involved as well? And do you believe that this was a Fed surrection?
Okay. Part of the thing is those 274 individuals, there's reporting from the Blaze and other news media as well. And depending on which source you're going to, you're going to hear slightly different things about those numbers. Some of them, we were seeing interchangeably in the mainstream news media that they're saying they are members of the FBI and law enforcement and or they're informants.
Yeah. Yes.
So we don't know what the number is exactly of actual agents versus informants under the direction of those federal agencies. We don't know which one it is. Either way, so people will say, well, it's confusing. It's not. It is still government control. The FBI and or other agencies were deeply embedded. Now, I'm not necessarily upset about that. 300,000 people who are very angry, all in one location. Okay, law enforcement's there. We had 35,000 members of law enforcement. Correction. That's for all of DC. There were about 11,000 members of law enforcement dedicated to this event. So there's a lot of people. I understand why. Mind you, and that's on the predication that they were going to do what Antifa and the far left do, which weeks earlier, we've seen this in May of 2019. We saw it in 2021, where the left in DC burned down a church, they burned down a park, they were rampaging through the streets, destroying property. So I understand why they would have them there, even though they had less than what would normally happen when there's a leftist protest. Why? Because the right believes in law enforcement. So they're less likely to riot. And when they do protest, there's less likely to be significant damage, if any at all, because that's not what the right does, because they believe in law enforcement, the rule of law. They go by legislation, not by violence. The left obviously uses violence on a regular basis.
Michael, real quick, if I can just jump in. Do you believe, not just what we mentioned about the agents, and I know you're talking about informants and things like that. There was a lot of stuff that I was reading also as far as provocation or provoking some of the J6 protesters, that the Metropolitan DC police may have been a little too heavy-handed in dealing with some of the protesters. Do you believe that some of the protesters were potentially agitated?
Oh, no. It wasn't maybe. They were. And we have video of it. Remember, there's 40,000 hours of video. The American public was shown about 10 minutes of it under the J6 committee run by Democrats. We got access, or at least acknowledged, 4,000 more hours of video from the subsequent Republican Party investigation into it, which revealed to us things like the shaman being escorted by 3 members of Capitol Police throughout the Capitol directly onto the floor of Congress with no complaint, no problem. And then we saw him later telling people to disperse and there should be no violence. Yet they committed him to 5 years for criminal trespass, which is ridiculous. So, and we also got to see the video, the 7-minute video showing the death of Ashley Babbitt. It's a 7-minute video. not a minute and a half. And when you see the 7-minute video, which shows what happened the 4 to 5 minutes before and the subsequent minute after the video that the public knows about, you realize that Capitol Police had that room under control. There were 3 agents, Capitol Police officers, in front of those doors. They got a message on their headphones because they did exactly this. They got a message. They walked down the stairs that later police would come up, Capitol Police would come up from, those stairs on the side. And only then that room got more agitated because we don't know what was being said exactly. And that's when Ashley Babbitt was targeted and shot on purpose. And then the Capitol Police came back in. There are many elements. We had an individual who was thrown off of the balcony of the Congress, fell 15 feet and injured them. We know that Capitol Police officers were beating the second woman who died at the January 6th that day. She was unconscious, laying on the ground, and a Capitol Police officer was beating her with a baton. We have video of that. That was reported to the general public as she died of an overdose. I don't think so, because we have a clear video of the Capitol Police beating her unconscious body on the ground. So yes, they were agitated.
Michael, just to clarify for our listening audience out there.
Sure.
At the end of the day, the Capitol Police are in charge of protection and other law duties for that area. So it falls on them. They're the final arbiter, and that's the people that were supposed to answer, I guess, to Nancy Pelosi. And we know exactly what Nancy Pelosi was up to. My question, Michael, is will we ever really get to the bottom of what happened there? Because certainly the J6 commission was a fraudulent commission.
They omitted a lot of, again, we know they omitted somewhere around 36,000 or more hours of video that may have been pertinent to the American people to understand what actually happened. We have many different videos that show us where if you were on the western entrance, police had opened the doors and were ushering people through, and they were very organized and orderly. And we know on the eastern entrance, that's where we saw some of the acts of violence, but we also know some of the individuals were members of Antifa and leftist organizations. We have the belief that people like Ray Epps were involved, and we have video of Ray Epps trying to incite individuals into committing acts of violence. And Mr. Epps, it appears, may have been a confidential informant. He may have been in touch with Nancy Pelosi as well as other members of the federal government. And it's highly questionable. And only when the massive attention was turned on him by the entire country, about 2.5 years after the fact, did he ever get brought in for basically he got a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
It was only after 2.5 years. Meanwhile, everyone else had been thrown in jail. And up until the pardon, we had over 300 people who were still in solitary confinement waiting for their day in court. Ray Epps never spent a day in, but yet we have video of him inciting people. So, yeah, there's a lot that we will never understand.
I am so glad when President Trump got in January that all the J6ers, or most of them, were released, because that was a long time coming. Listen, I want to ask you something else, Michael, about the FBI and the other breaking news coming out of FBIville about James Comey and him being charged. What is it, with perjury, lying, contempt, potential 5 years? Michael, do you think that if the trial is not in Virginia and it's moved to D.C., do you think even after all this fanfare from our DOJ and whatnot, that Comey could still potentially walk?
It doesn't really matter where they're going to put this. There has been so much media influencing that virtually it doesn't matter where you go, you're not going to get an impartial trial. The entire public, one way or the other, has been influenced, and their opinions pretty set. But what we can say for sure is that based on the facts, the evidence that we do know about, we do know that Russia was a hoax, always was. We do know that people like Adam Schiff, even though they went on to Rachel Maddow almost every other day for 3 years, promising the American people that they had evidence proving that Russia was real, never provided that evidence. And in 3 different investigations that cost $30 million of taxpayer money, there is no proof. It was a hoax. In fact, every investigation pointed back to the Democratic Party and to Hillary Clinton and her campaign and the Steele dossier, all fabrications, and then it was dropped. So knowing that, Comey he was knowledgeable. He was credibly aware of the weakness of the case against Donald Trump and therefore the American people, the fabrications that were being alleged and used to justify spying on the Trump administration, spying on the campaign, trying to arrest individuals on false pretenses, abuse of power. So we know that he factually should be aware of it. The problem is, and this is where it gets difficult, he's probably going to walk, maybe get a slap on the wrist. Why? Because you have to prove that the day he was speaking to Congress, that he knew and remembered everything that he was speaking about and his answers, that he remembered all of the data. That is very difficult to prove. Now, again, he should, based on his position at the time, based on the information he had at the time that had been already collected and reviewed, he should be aware. And he should have been very familiar with it, just as I am. And it's been how many years? And I remember the data points and the facts that have been found. And I can quote them to you as I am right now. This is his job. This was his high profile position. This is something major. You would think he would know that. We have to prove it. Since that's very difficult to get into someone's mind and to prove beyond a shadow of doubt that he knew that he was lying, especially when he worded things very carefully, because he often said, I don't recall. I don't remember if I said this or if I did that. And that's him playing the legal game, which gives him the out in a trial.
No, Michael, I understand what you're saying, but the Trump people are thinking they've got a pretty solid case against them.
I just want to be put in front of, let the indictment go through.
No, I know. Let it go through. But Michael, you and I know that if anybody gets in front of a D.C. court, they're just going to laugh that right out of there because we've amply seen the way D.C. courts go. Just look at the J6 prosecutions where they were batting 100,000. Now, I have to ask you an overall question about Pam Bondi, if you don't mind. Are you satisfied with Pam Bondi's performance so far? And there's a question you would all, there's a trouble you would all, Michael, that it took President Trump's prodding over the last week or two and probably longer to say, hey, Pam, it's been 8 months. Let's get the ball rolling. These people did significant damage to the country, to himself. Trump spending tens of millions in legal fees with the lawfare. I don't care what the leftists. I know you don't care about the leftists either, Mike. When they say, "Oh my God, this is political retribution," what's going on? They're the ones that put our people in jail, Navarro and Bannon and others. So, how do you see this playing out, Michael? Are you going to stick to? It looks like he probably walk 50-50, or what do you see at the end game of this?
Okay. There's a couple of things in that, but I don't think Pam Bondi has done a great job. I think there's a lot of problems. She's been given a mess. And in each of the cases, we've seen that the left and many of the individuals deep inside these government agencies have been slow walking and confusing things. As an example, the New York offices of the Attorney General sent over 2 trucks full of data that was not filed, that was not organized, that was not arranged. And it was all their data on some of the files and information that Pam Bondi is supposed to be going through. They did that to slow down the process so that she would have to spend months, her and her teams had to spend weeks or months trying to comb through all of this randomized, basically, take a pile of important papers, scatter them into a room and dump two phone books worth of paperwork on top of it. And now, okay, figure it out. It's going to take you a while to get that. So she's been somewhat sabotaged, but at the same time, she has overinflated the status of where she's at on many of these cases. I understand Trump did what he's supposed to do. He's the executive, he's in charge. And he said, do this, do it now. This is a priority. No different than saying, I want to defund the U.S. aid or the Department of Education. He gives the overall direction, and his secretaries and their agencies then enact and actualize that directive, that direction that he wants to go into. I think she's just been she's very bad at getting that done or dealing with the impediments that have been put in front of her. And she's also very bad at setting expectations with the public, especially with the news media that's looking to twist everything she says.
Michael, right there, you hit the nail on the head, but I want to expand on that. What I think the big problem with Pam Bondi is, and I got a big problem with it, within the first week or two, as you remember back in January, she got 10 of the biggest conservative influencers, Jack Postache and others, hand them, say, here's the Epstein files. We're going head first into this. We're going to get results. And all it was basically, flight numbers and whatnot. And she promised the world. I don't know. When I saw that, Michael, I didn't know if she was really up to the task or the job.
Well, no, she believed in her staff and also the various attorneys throughout the nation that they would follow the law, that when she asked for information, they would provide the information she wanted, and it would be formatted and collected and be presentable. She trusted her people too much.
Yeah.
And some of her people had an agenda separate of her desire to do the job. They had a partisan agenda. So she failed. And because she had set up the expectations so high, she failed that much worse. I think she's learned that. A lot of people, you got to realize, most people haven't been in politics, like talking to the public in terms of politics. Very few people have had that opportunity on a national level, even a regional level. So some people, when they're elevated into that position, they could be great at their job. They're just not good at explaining their job, and therefore they fail worse than if they were just left alone, didn't have to talk to the public. She may not be here after the midterms.
Yes. Now, Michael, let me ask you about another case that I don't know if it's stalled or what the deal is of Letitia James and these potential mortgage irregularities. I don't know where that is positioned, and I'm assuming those are federal charges. They're involving her claiming a different residency and things like that. There were the problems of what she was doing in New York City a few years back. I had a guest on here, Jack Cashel. Him and his investigator pals actually looked through the records, and he said that they're highly suspicious and potentially criminal. Do you see Letitia James coming under the spotlight like Mr. Comey is? Will that happen, or do you think this is going to be slow walked also?
Under the prior attorney general out of, I believe it was Virginia, or was it North Carolina? I believe it was Virginia. He quit because he couldn't do the job. He didn't want to do the job because of, I believe part of it was because of his political preferences, and part of it is there's a lot of backdoor political consequences to being the front person attacking Letitia James. But yeah, she, based on what we understand about the evidence, She signed the documents. They're legal documents. They have been presented to the public. So this is not something that we don't know. Did she sign? Did she? She did. She acknowledged that she is a resident, a primary resident of Virginia on her mortgage documents while she's in elected office in New York as Attorney General. That is a crime. That is illegal. The rest of it is getting all of that. She knew she was committing the crime, blah, blah. That's for the trial. The former Attorney General didn't want to do that because of politics. The new one, who has replaced him already, this happened last week, by the way. Trump said on Thursday, I'm going to fire this guy. Friday, the guy said, I resign. He got fired. Now we have a new Attorney General in. They are moving forward with this, partially because they're not afraid of the political backlash. Part of it's because, in other words, they're not as corrupt because she's newer in government. So she hasn't built up the favors, political favors on both sides that she would need for that position. So she's more willing to take the political backlash, and her politics, it would appear, align more with the president. So I do think Letitia James will get her day in court. Presumably she's innocent, even though the documents, they tell us black and white something very different. They say she's guilty, but she's innocent until proven guilty. She will, I believe, be in a courtroom within the next year and a half.
No, that's good. Good synopsis there, Michael. I just want to keep the listeners, I try to keep them abreast of many of these legal situations going on right now. If you're just joining us, welcome aboard the Matthew J. Show. Michael Vass is with us tonight. We are also live on YouTube and Rumble if you want to watch us on another platform. Of course, we're here on X, and we are dissecting the issues that matter to you. Now, Michael, I want to move on to something. I know you were on last month, but like I said earlier when we were talking on the phone, that the Charlie Kirk assassination is just, I almost still can't believe it, Michael, in so many ways. A young life like that, a young, married man with two young kids, gunned down by just trying to engage the left in some constructive dialogue at colleges and universities throughout the country. Michael, have we crossed the line now? There is no speaking with the left. They've already let us know, even a couple of days ago, with what happened in Dallas, and some of the illegals were murdered, and he was actually after the ICE guys, but some still horrific results. How concerned should Kash Patel and the FBI be about these leftist movements, and particularly this guy in Dallas? Some of his readings had him attached to Antifa. How big of a movement is Antifa? Are they well-funded, coordinated, and should we certainly be giving a closer inspection to them?
Okay. Again, couple of things in that. By the way, folks, if you have comments, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know. I love that. I love, whether it's in the chat or afterwards, I always look forward to it. There's a lot in this. First of all, it is horrific. And I've spoke about it at length at the time. I'll say again, just briefly, Charlie Kirk, whether you like him or not, is really unimportant. He was a notable exception. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't trying to be a politician. He spoke. He used the First Amendment in the United States to talk to people who didn't agree with him. That's it. He's not a racist. In fact, anyone who says he was, you have not watched Charlie Kirk's videos. You have not watched the hundreds, if not thousands of hours of conversations he had with black people at various colleges on a regular basis. You don't have to like what he said. He wasn't racist. He wasn't against gays or anyone else. So there's a lot of misinformation being put out there to try and prejudice people so that they don't walk down the same road that Charlie Kirk did and all of a sudden go, yeah, he isn't racist. Don't have to agree with him. He isn't racist. He isn't sexist. He isn't against gays or trans or anyone else. But taking that into account, the left has miscalculated. The right follows the law. That's what we do. That's why we're conservatives. We follow the law. We want to conserve the law to preserve what has been the tradition of our nation. The left wants to go and create something entirely different. They want to destroy what was old and bring in the new. And they think that's always better than whatever already exists, which isn't always the case. When they killed Charlie Kirk, it's the same thing as what happened with Gandhi. It's the same thing that happened with Martin Luther King. To an extent, it's the same thing that happened with Malcolm X. You took someone who was the most peaceful of the opposing point of view. What do you think the extremists are going to do? We're getting so close to a civil war, and I think the dominoes continue to fall. We've seen it in ABC with the leftists who walked in, who did a drive-by and then walked into an ABC affiliate station and shot at people. We saw another lunatic leftist trying to shoot ICE agents and winding up killing the illegal aliens that they supposedly loved. Maybe that's why they no longer exist on the face of the earth. I don't know. But again, this is the mania of the left, partially because of people like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, went on air about 2 days ago and said, "Oh, I don't think there's going to be a 2028 presidential election." There's no proof of that. He has no evidence of that. He's just saying that to get the left angry and to give him money. He's like, I'll run. I'll stop the left. I'll stop the conservatives, the Republicans. I'll stop the right if you just give me money and let me run as the presidential candidate. That's what his goal was. But what he's also doing is inciting and basically motivating the extremist left that are very active, especially in organizations like the Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Indivisible, and of course Antifa and BLM. They're already very willing and actively going out and being violent. I mean, think about the 2021 riots.
Yeah.
That was across America. Think about the autonomous zones from 2021, and actually they existed beforehand, but just from 2020, actually, going all the way until right this second, the autonomous zones. Every autonomous zone that has ever existed in the United States is leftist. That's the Chaz, the Capitol Hill autonomous zone, the Defenders of the Atlanta Forest. They're all over the nation, and they kill people. They kill people. Antifa kills people. And even if you're Jerry Nadler or any of the Democrats on the left, oh no, it doesn't really exist. People are dead because of Antifa, because of BLM, because of the leftist extremism. We need to take that seriously. We need to end that. And there is no equivalent. There is no equivalent to these organizations on the right. And they are funded, very well funded. Every time you see one of those videos when they have their protests, which leads into a riot, did you ever notice there's always a truck that pulls on up and starts handing out shields and umbrellas? By the way, the umbrellas have reinforced steel rods for the main part so that
Michael,
you can hit someone and
Mike,
they're sharpened edge.
Michael, in 2020, they were putting pallets of bricks on every street corner in Minnesota and some of the other cities, as you mentioned, there was rioting.
Forget 2020. They were doing that this year.
Well, Michael, this is obviously the question I asked a few minutes ago. This is obviously, and I think you were addressing it, a level of high-level coordination. Now, I asked a guest this week also, and I hope it's not the case, but I believe it might have been the case back in 2020. Was there any nodding and winking from maybe a rogue federal agency or some politicians? Were they kind of nodding and winking when our country was being burned down?
Not nodding and winking. You're talking about people like Maxine Waters. You're talking about Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler. These are individuals who directly said, oh, Antifa doesn't exist. The autonomous zones don't exist. They literally went on record saying that. And people like Maxine Waters said, oh, by the way, if you see a Republican, they're over having dinner, an elected official. She said Republican, but she was referring to elected officials. But okay, she goes, oh, you see them? They're at a supermarket. They're at a restaurant. They're with their family. They're at a movie theater. You go and confront them. You make them uncomfortable. You make them leave. You get in their face. But she's like, oh, but I don't know anything. Antifa doesn't exist, and I don't support violence. That sounds pretty violent to me.
It does.
And she's just one example of people. AOC has made statements like that. Chuck Schumer on the steps of the Supreme Court saying that the whirlwind is going to come and strike the conservative members of the Supreme Court justices because they made a decision he didn't like. I mean, this is not new. And
Michael, let me interrupt you there for a second. A tragic, to me, a public execution like a JFK type thing. They kind of, the perpetrators, they want the world to see this public execution assassination. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk being a pivotal person, obviously with his voter registration efforts he had, helped President Trump with the younger vote. Mm-hmm. Michael, do you think this unfortunately could be a direct hit to Turning Point USA, or has it done the complete opposite?
Short and long term, two different components of that. And I know I always say that I'm always adding stuff to this. It's because I'm being honest, and we're having a conversation that's not a minute and a half, which is what the mainstream media does, because they don't want you to think about this. They don't want you to respond to this. They just want you to comply and to obey. Whatever is being said, you just say yes, shake your head, and be silent. I want you to think about it. There's two aspects to this. Short term, we are looking at Erica Kirk, his wife, has stepped up as the CEO. She's trying to run the operations with the support of much of the staff and many of Charlie Kirk's friends. Right now, there are several individuals. I believe Dave Rubin is one. Megyn Kelly is another. Several people are going back out. Ben Shapiro, I believe, is doing it as well, are going out and doing what TPUSA was doing, what Charlie Kirk was doing, going to colleges and speaking, just talking to people about various issues. And we see that now there's one of the most recent ones at one of the black colleges was only able to be there for 10 minutes. The guy showed up, they set up, and then 10 minutes later, a mob of black students attacked them. So they couldn't talk. Again, the right is trying to talk. The left is being violent. And they're doing that because they have been taught by these very colleges, black and any other, they're being taught. Someone says something you don't like, that's a microaggression. A microaggression is violence. Therefore, if they've been violent to you, you can be violent back. And by the way, they're Nazis, so that means you can be extra violent. You can be lethally violent against people that say things you don't like.
Well, Michael, let me stop you right there with the, about the violence, and I agree with you. And I know you'll probably disagree with this, but I got to make sure I say this correctly. Would it be prudent for conservatives, particularly high-level conservatives, to be a little bit more leery about when they go out? Let's take, for example, what happened with President Trump here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania out in Butler and the attempted assassination, and that poor guy, retired guy, got killed. Mm-hmm. Would it be prudent, and I'm not blaming Charlie Kirk's death on himself, here in America, I think we should be able to go out and have constructive dialogue with any other person. But what I'm saying, would you be a little bit more prudent with your security, particularly outdoors, given that, like, as you're saying, these maniacs in the left don't care. In fact, most of them that do the killings usually either kill themselves or want to kill themselves. How do you protect yourself against that?
You can't. That's the honest answer. You can't. And I know, and I've talked to many people like yourself, many podcasters, people on left, in the center, on the right, elected officials, podcasters, political commentators of various types, and candidates for elected offices across this country. Everyone's terrified. Everyone is looking at they have a target on their back right now, and
Right.
anyone can be targeted. At some point, there will be, and I hate to say this, but someone on the right is going to get fed up and they're going to retaliate. And you're going to see that. It's going to happen. It's human nature. Whether we want it to or not, there's only, I got two cheeks. You smack one, I turn my cheek. You smack that one, what am I going to do? Now I'm under assault. And that's the mindset that leads someone to say, okay, I'm fed up. I've been dealing with this for a decade. I've been smacked and smacked and smacked again. And now I'm fearful because I'm seeing them actively try to kill us. I'm going to react. And that's the problem. Now, I understand. Steven Crowder says, defend yourself to the fullest extent of the law. Legally, defend yourself to the ultimate. I don't disagree with that. But we will see that play out in the news media very differently because they have an agenda. 80% of the newsrooms are left-leaning, if not far left-leaning. They're going to word this very differently. So yes, we all believe, we understand the environment, we understand that it's getting worse, it's not getting better. Because if they're targeting people who talk, if the level of target has gone from not just politicians, not just candidates, but to people who just talk for a living, then there is no one who's safe. And there's no way you can protect yourself at every time, at everywhere. Like Maxine Water says, they have been targeting us in the restaurants, in the supermarkets, when we go to the post office. You can't protect yourself 24/7. It means now is the moment we do a gut check and we say, is it worth it? This is the time. It's kind of like when I was in Moscow. A lot of people may not be aware. Yes, I speak Russian. I lived in Moscow in 91. That was during the coup attempt of the RFK as they tried to take over. They had a coup to get Gorbachev out and to bring in the hardline communists to stop the transition of Russia, of the Soviet Union into Russia, the CIS, as it is right now. Part of that was Vladimir Putin doing that. I was there in person. I had been living there for a year at that point and I was watching the tanks roll down the street. And when we saw the tanks coming, the word went out. It's getting real, folks. We don't know what the tanks are going to do. We don't know what the soldiers are going to do. You may die. Get out now. If you're not serious, if you don't want to stand here and possibly die, leave now. They were saying that to the protesters standing in front of what they call the White House. It's not like the United States. It's more like a Congress building on Kutuzovsky Prospect next to the bridge in the first ring of Moscow. Okay? Yes, I do know what I'm talking about. I was there. And the word went out. Get out. Get out now because the tank's coming.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to happen if they're going to start firing or not, because they might. Well, we're in that same position here in the United States. If you're not serious about speaking, whether you're left, right, wherever you are, and you're talking about politics, if you're not serious, if you don't have a passion for it, if you don't believe what you're saying, and you're only doing it for money, get out.
Michael, do you believe Charlie Kirk was killed just as much for political as his religious beliefs?
Yes, absolutely. I don't even think it was mostly for his religious beliefs. I believe it's all about the politics. Because for Kirk, his political beliefs went hand in hand with his religious beliefs. Because one supported the other. There wasn't a wide difference for him. So when you say, oh, well, they targeted him, and who's really saying he was targeted because of his religion? The same people who don't believe in religion, the same socialists, the same progressives that believe that there is no God, and they therefore all of their legislation is built on that belief system that there is no God, and so they can do whatever they want. That is still a belief system. Charlie Kirk's belief system said, no, I have to be accountable to God, and therefore I have to behave in a certain way, and the legislation that I put out should reflect that that accountability to the ultimate being in the universe. The left doesn't believe in accountability to anything or anyone except the party. So you can't say he was killed because of religion, because he wasn't. He was killed because of his ideology. And realistically, the thing that got Charlie Kirk killed, the thing that makes every newscaster, every pundit, every one of us in danger, is he was willing to speak about his beliefs and not the approved message. He wanted you to think about everything that you've been told. Do you agree? That was the main thing he was saying. Do you agree? Forget, here's the facts. Do you agree with the message that you've been given?
Michael, are conservatives underestimating the evilness of the left? I mean, I know I said, between Trump and Butler and what happened to Charlie, are we just kind of sleepwalking through this? And do you think when President Trump yesterday in the White House, along with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and others, saying we are definitely going to go after this problem, we've identified the left and their violence, do you see success in this? And do you see this having to be long term, this war that they've brought to us that we have to bring back to them?
Oh, God, okay. It won't work for a specific reason. Donald Trump's going to be president until 2028. Someone else will be president after 2028. In 2032, there'll be another president, 36 and 40, go on and on. And with that, you have political shifts. Right. And even if you want to follow the same general direction as your predecessor, the underlying current of politics will change. So you won't be able to achieve, or you'll either achieve more or less, which means this is going to be a phase. Antifa is a terrorist organization. They have taken over property, threatened American citizens, and killed American citizens across this country through autonomous zones and through many of their riots. That is a fact. Yeah. It is not up for opinion. I don't care how you feel about it. That's a fact. So they should be treated like any terrorist organization. I have no problem with that. Someone, you're on the left, you like that, you should reevaluate your positions and look up the definition of terrorist. Because it's not about your feelings, it's about the facts. That being said, so we know the focus is on Antifa today. Remember how the news media, during the riots in the summer of love of 2020 and 2021, the autonomous zones across this country, the media, the left-leaning media, told us, oh, Antifa doesn't exist. These organizations don't exist. These people, we have video of them attacking people, killing people, getting bricks and using these weapons, umbrellas that are actually sharpened sticks and such. Yeah, they don't exist. We have video of it. Remember, it was the CNN reporter looking at the nation and the world live and said, it's mostly peaceful here. There were several hundred, maybe 1,000 people surrounding him as there's a building that's on fire because of arson. By the way, there was a body found in that building. Someone died. And there's an arson going on, and fire trucks are being blocked by the thousands of leftist protesters, can't get there. And that community, several other buildings, apartment buildings, burned down as well. People's lives were endangered. They didn't care. And they called that mostly peaceful. Yeah. So you mean to tell me going a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the media is going to keep saying, Charlie Kirk, forget about him. Like the leftist media don't want to talk about it. They're going to downplay it. They're going to try and elevate people like Jimmy Kimmel being removed by Disney, a private corporation, and blame it on Republicans. They're going to say Orange Man bad. They'll say Vance is bad. They'll push every agenda they can. Do you think we're going to see the same emphasis if Democrats get power? Do you think we're going to see the same emphasis on trying to stop Antifa? Because under Obama, he was the one who elevated BLM to national status based on the Dallas sniper who was a member of BLM shooting at police officers at a BLM protest. And Barack Obama elevated the BLM and said we should have sympathy, even though their members were the ones committing the atrocity.
No, I remember it. Michael, listen, can I ask you a thing? Can you put your political consultant hat on?
Sure.
How will Charlie Kirk's assassination affect the midterms next year?
It already has. We're seeing that there is a uptick in registrations for Republicans. We're seeing that public sentiment is moving towards more of a conservative viewpoint. The nation is moving more center right. And that's not very hard because the left has gone so far left. They were already center right by the definition of the left. Anyone who isn't where AOC is basically, according to the left, that makes you a Nazi, 1930s German. So most of the middle of the nation is becoming center right, at least temporarily. That'll take us into the midterms. And as we see more and more evidence that is irrefutable of what the left does, when you disagree, they do violence. We saw that in Dallas. We saw that with the ABC station. Their answer is violence. You obey or they punish you. That is driving people away. They already had some of the lowest approval ratings ever for Democratic Party. They were about 33%. We know that their donors for most of this year abandoned the Democratic Party. Remember, it was in June that the Democratic Party, the Kevin, the new DNC chair, was saying he was begging billionaires to give them money because they were broke. That was in June. Because everyone has left them for these things. Now Charlie Kirk has made it more. While we will see that be a positive, we will still see Zohran Mamdani is going to win by 20 points. We are going to see a growth because it's not all one way. The youth have been indoctrinated in our education system for the last 15 years. Sorry for the background noise. 15 years of being told the right is evil, the right is Nazis, the right is wrong, orange man bad. We got to get through that generation. They're going to vote that way.
Michael, listen. I got to stop you there.
Sure.
I got to ask you this, man. Okay. I agree with your analysis right there. However, I don't want to throw a wrench into what you just said, but what do you make of the special election in Arizona in the last couple of days where the Democrat won by plus 37? Was that just an anomaly? And I agree with your assessment prior to this about 26 midterms, but I'm asking you specifically about this special election in Arizona a couple of days ago where the Democrat won big. Now, were there other variables like maybe a heavy-duty Democratic district? Because the Democrats are running around saying, oh, that's a bellwether. We're going to take back the House in 26.
Of course they say that. They have to say that. They have to say that. Otherwise, they'll have a complete collapse and they'll lose all power and it could destroy their party. Just like they had to say, oh, yeah, donors abandoned us. No, but it's not that bad. They have to minimize the negative. Oh, Antifa doesn't exist. Oh, the assassin that killed Charlie Kirk, he's not a leftist. He's MAGA. That was the first lie.
Yeah.
He was, and then they changed it. Now I think the latest version is, oh no, he's just an independent. He has nothing to do with he's just independent. They'll change the story as many times as they need until either everyone forgets the story or they move or they believe whatever the latest version is. So, they're saying that about Arizona. That's a one-off case. That's a pre-existing. People had already made up their mind. Votes had already been going in, getting cast when we first found out about Charlie. And a lot of people just gave up. They lost hope. So I think that's an anomaly. Even when we're looking at with Zohran Mamdani, people are looking at that. It is separate. They're not looking at that as the government. They're looking at that as the city of New York. And part of that is, well, most people don't realize there's 5 candidates in that race. There's an independent, Jim Walden. There's a Republican, Curtis Sliwa, plus 3 Democrats. Okay. But if you look at it in news media, the only people you hear about is Cuomo, maybe Adams sometimes, and Zohran Mamdani. That's it. Because the news media made up their mind. They already picked their choice. So that's what we're seeing in a lot of places around the nation. But the 2026 midterms, you can't do that. People pay attention to the midterms. They have a higher turnout rate. Midterms tend to be, main presidential elections are about 63% of people actually show up and vote, which is pitiful. And midterms, we get about 58% of people actually show up and vote. That's absolutely pitiful. On the off years, about 38% of people actually vote, which is beyond pitiful. It's abysmal. So the tricks they can use to get through a midterm isn't a trick they can use to get through the off years versus
good points, Michael. But I was going to ask you this later, but since you're in New York City politics and you're there, what does a Mamdani, or however you pronounce it correct, right?
2 M's.
What would that look like his first week if he does win, if he does prevail? What does the first week or the first month, like all the things he's talking about, free public transit, and all these rent-free zone things he was talking about, and city grocery run stores, doesn't that have to be passed by city council? He's not going to be able to be like the dictator of New York City and pass all this wild crap he's been saying. What will his first week or month look like if he wins?
Not much. It's not just the city council. See, people don't know this. Most cities, almost all cities, are inside one county. LA is in LA County. Chicago is in Cook County. Most cities are in a county, which gives the mayor power over that. But when you have a city that is under multiple counties, like New York, which has 5 counties, actually 6, it becomes the power over that city goes to the governor, not the mayor. Okay. The mayor isn't very powerful. New York City's mayor is popular because New York City, but they're not powerful. Brandon Johnson is far more powerful than any mayor in New York City. Same thing with Vass in Los Angeles, far more powerful than any mayor in New York City. They're just not as popular. They don't get as much attention. So there's a difference there. On top of which, every policy Zohran Mamdani has offered is a policy that has been tried in the United States and or around the world and has failed. Every policy. He's just copy-paste. This is socialism. We're going to do socialism here. And it already failed. But this time, it's new because socialism is always new when someone says, let's do it. And it always fails because it's the same idea every time. And same principles, it always fails. He's got to get the governor to say yes. Kathy Hochul wants to get reelected. She's not going to say yes because the policies always fail. So she attaches herself to him after he gets elected. Then she's going to be sinking along with his approval rating when all of these policies either don't go through or they fail. She's not going to be on boat with him.
Well, Michael, would you acknowledge that your buddy there, I won't pronounce his name, the mayor supposedly elect, that he kind of ran on this like kind of semi-populist message where he said, well, those vendors are charging too much for hot dogs or hamburgers. Did he try to steal kind of like like what an economic populist kind of message and try to twist it or try to, mix it in with his socialist agenda?
Oh, you mean Mamdani, not Cuomo. Okay. Yeah. For a moment, I thought you were talking about Cuomo. Free stuff sells. And please don't have any illusion. We're talking about politics. We're talking about elections and candidates. It's a sales pitch. A campaign is a sales pitch.
Right.
There is no difference. And that's why advertising is so important, because they're selling you an image, and then you get the reality, and the reality has nothing to do with what you were sold. That's why most politicians, we all say, politicians' promises are empty almost always. We almost never get someone like Trump who actually does what he promised. It's so shocking when we get that. Mamdani is selling free stuff, and everyone wants something free. But it's not. It's government and it's politics. There's nothing free. There is no free lunch. Someone is paying for that.
Yeah.
It is costing you something. You may not recognize immediately what you're paying, or how much you're going to pay, or how it's going to negatively impact you, because you haven't thought about the consequences, because you've been taught and told, hold your head down, don't think about it, just agree. But the payment always comes up. You're always going to suffer the consequences, no matter what. So you're going to see that. He's going to come in. He'll get New York City is 6-1 Democrat. The city council will have 2 or 3 conservatives and Republicans in it. They won't be able to stop anything. They'll agree. He may or may not get some of these ideas, and most likely most of them will not go through the governor. The state legislature will not okay this. His policy will fail. He'll blame it on Republicans, even though, by the way, every problem in New York State, just like every problem in California, every problem in Illinois, every problem in Chicago, specifically those cities, I'll tell you, has nothing to do with the right. That is nothing connected with Republicans or conservatives, libertarians. It has nothing to do with us. We have no responsibility whatsoever. Why? We haven't had control of the state in 50 years, half a century in every one of those cities and those states. Half a century we haven't had control of the state legislature and the governor. In many of these, like New York, it's been 23 years since we had any Republican in any state level position. You're talking about 30 years at least in California. You're talking about, if you're looking at Chicago as an example, you're talking about 75 years Democrat control. All the problems are Democrats. Their policies have failed over and over again, and all they do is give you the same promise with a different face. People don't realize that, because no one's ever actually said that to them as bluntly and directly.
Michael, listen, I need you to, and I think you've clarified it, but I may need you to reiterate this again, because what you've been saying the last couple of minutes, I think most people in the United States that are following what's happening in New York City mayoral race aren't aware of. And correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the power that if he is elected, is kind of diluted, and it has to come from Albany. So things like defunding the police, he has no control over that as far as cutting jobs or the budget of New York City. You're saying that he's almost like a paper tagger type job?
Pretty much, yeah. And that's true of pretty much anyone. Eric Adams, you name it, Bloomberg. They can showcase their ideas bigger and better than almost any mayor across the country. Passing those ideas and actually implementing those ideas, not so much. And that relies on state government, in particular the governor, but also, depending on the item, maybe the state legislature. They can't just do it just because they want to. Yeah, it's very much a paper tiger position, and it has nothing to do with politics. It's just the nature of New York City, because it has multiple counties. It's just the way the.
Now, Michael, listen, I'm so glad that you clarified that and got it out for my listeners about exactly what's happening in New York City. Now,
he's still going to be a miserable. Having him in, the limited power he has will be devastating. It will hurt.
Well, Michael, let me ask you a question. Do you see any parallels between him, if he wins New York City, and the current mayor of London? Do you see any parallels there, or are they just both really wacky?
Khan? Yeah. Khan of London. The mayor of London is I believe it's Sadiq Khan.
Sadiq Khan,
his name. Yeah, he's a miserable, horrible mayor of London. Just look at the number of stabbings in London, and you can tell they don't have guns, or they don't have easy access to guns. It's very restricted there for the last 300 years. But they have knives. And now they have, in London, they have knife control. Like we have gun control. People saying, yeah, we just need more government control over guns, and that'll stop the guns. It doesn't. And in England, their counterpart is, we need knife control. Yes, your steak knife. They want to take away your steak knife, and you have to use a spork. And that hasn't made anyone safe either. So, they're both horrible. And that's because they aren't mayors. They're not politicians. They're activists.
Yes.
They're activists first and foremost. It's kind of like Ketanji Jackson Brown, Supreme Court Justice. She's not a Supreme Court Justice. She's an activist. That's the first thing they're there for. They're doing activism. They just happen to be in government, which means they have a bigger megaphone and they can do more damage, but they're an activist first. And somewhere way down the line, they actually have an elected position that they're supposed to do, which is just to facilitate their activism. I think, and that's true of Sadiq Khan, that's true of Zohran Mamdani, that's true of Ketanji Jackson Brown. They have been failures. They will continue to be failures because their purpose is corrupt.
Now, spot on analysis there, Michael. If you're just joining us here at the Matthew J. Show, welcome aboard. We have Michael Vass, and we are also live on YouTube and Rumble. Now, Michael, I want to move towards some of more interest to our.
By the way, I'm still with you. Go ahead.
I got you. Some of our MAGA viewers. Now, as you know, I'm a big supporter of President Trump. I don't have to necessarily agree with everything he does, but I certainly support his domestic agenda and a lot of his international agenda. But with that said, there was a press conference a few days ago with Dr. Oz and RFK Jr. when they were talking about Tylenol and, not using it during pregnancy or exercising caution. And then, of course, the bought and sold media went berserk on it that night. And then subsequently, Michael, in fact, I think, Michael, that you had something on X concerning what I'm talking about, the Tylenol thing.
Mm-hmm.
You posted something on X. Well, anyway, and I'll elaborate on that, but I want to get to something first, a spin on it. The only thing that concerned me about this press conference with Dr. Oz, President Trump, and RFK Jr. and others is that President Trump started to get into playing a doctor role and on saying, okay, you don't want to take Tylenol. You don't want to take the only thing I had a problem with that, Michael, is that I think that should be delegated to the medical professionals, to doctors. And I thought when I was watching it, I said, man, he's setting himself up because the bought and sold media, as they did within minutes of that speech at the podium, the New York Times with an online edition started tearing it apart that, this was all conspiracy theory, whatever, about Tylenol and what it causes. Mm-hmm. I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. And that's just an observation about President Trump. And again, I know he loves the podium, and I think his greatest asset, his voice, sometimes can be his biggest liability. Now, I know I put it down here, Michael, what you did on your X post, but I can't find it. But I think you had commented on X about this whole Tylenol situation.
I did. Because, previously I confirmed many people have seen several posts about Tylenol in 2017 saying that women should not use Tylenol if they are pregnant. That is confirmed. You can also double check it with ChatGPT. You can go to Grok. It is an official statement. Matter of fact, just pull out a Tylenol bottle and read the back of it. And it will tell you that prior to using Tylenol, you should get the approval or at least a consultation with your doctor. So what did RFK actually say? What did the HHS, the CDC, what did they actually say? There may be a correlation It may have an impact in some cases. Not that I've seen idiots come out there and say, well, Tylenol was created after autism was diagnosed. So what? You're going backwards in time? No, you moron. Let's get it straight. There's many causes, we believe, of autism, not just one. And one of the factors, kind of like getting cancer, it's not one thing causes cancer. There's many things that can contribute to cancer or heart disease or having a stroke. And this seems to be one of those factors. And in particular, it's an easy one. And even Tylenol themselves say this may not be the best thing for you to do if you're pregnant. And what have we seen as a result? The left came out and said, oh, it's about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not a doctor. Oh, why are you listening to him? Women went on to TikTok, said, watch me. You know what? I have TDS, Orange Man Bad. I'm going to chug some Tylenol just to show you. By the way, I'm pregnant. Woman's dying right now.
Yeah.
Dying right now because she was chugging Tylenol to say, see, I'm going to virtue signal and Donald Trump is so dumb. And now you're dying and so is her baby, sadly.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So again, folks, you don't have to. This isn't about Orange Man Bad. It's not about Donald Trump. It's not about RFK and whether he's a traitor to Democrats. It has nothing to do with that. This is science coming from Harvard. Hello, you science deniers out there. You told us we have to listen to the science. Well, the science, the report from Harvard says there may be a correlation. By the way, the science from the scientists at Tylenol says, don't do this. Talk to your doctor. And you're denying it, not us. So, this is kind of stupid that we're seeing this happen. And by the way, you know who else is denying the science right this second?
Who?
Barack Obama just came out with an announcement earlier today saying that, well, Donald Trump, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think, you should be using Tylenol. What does he say here? Oh, God, I had it. Matter of fact,
I responded to it. I can't remember what I responded to. I respond to everything Obama puts out there.
Here it is. By the way, I'm looking at X, a statement that he made earlier today. We have people in power making broad claims around certain drugs and autism that have been continuously disproven. They haven't been disproven. They haven't been conclusively disproven. That's why we have the study from Harvard, Obama. And that's why Tylenol says, hey, you may not want to use this. Go talk to your doctor first. So automatically, Obama has no idea what he's talking about. But he's giving medical advice now. And if I remember correctly, under the Biden administration, the Disinformation Governance Board said that he has to be deplatformed for giving advice. He's not a medical doctor. I remember YouTube deplatforming hundreds of people, again, because of the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats. They twisted their arm, supposedly, and they did factually eliminate people from the internet because they were supposedly giving medical advice when they were just reading what the CDC and what the WHO and what these studies said. Am I a doctor? Absolutely not. Am I giving you medical advice? I absolutely am not. I'm telling you what Tylenol has on their product.
Right. Michael, it's common sense. I'm glad you clarified that. Let me ask Michael Vass this. Are you happy now that with the selection of RFK Jr., is he turning out to be a real asset for the Trump administration?
I have always said that I would never vote for RFK Jr. He is a Democrat and a pretty progressive one at that. That being said, he is a great fit for HHS, Health and Human Services. He is good at being in charge of the CDC because he has his whole Make America Healthy Again. That is a wonderful idea. It is, I don't know how anyone can take that badly. What, you don't want America to be healthy? That's just stupid. He is passionate about that. He is well informed about that. And I think he's done a great job at that. Would I vote for him as president? Absolutely not. What do I support him being the secretary of HHS? absolutely, he is an asset to America. And his movement, the Make America Healthy Again, is something that if Republicans, Elise Stefanik, think about this. I told you this back in February, and you haven't listened to me. I know this for a fact. You haven't listened. You think I'm wrong. She's not adopting the Maha movement. She's not getting behind that like most Republicans, and that is a mistake. And that's going to cost her the election.
Michael, it doesn't surprise you how viciously attacked RFK Jr. has been on the Hill. I've watched some of those proceedings. I mean, it's really nasty. The Democrats really hate his guts. I guess once you wander away, that's it. You're target number one to them.
Oh, absolutely, because you're a traitor. They consider him a traitor. And like anyone who leaves the left or leaves the plantation of the leftist ideology, they're worse than even Donald Trump. They are evil because they're traitors, because they're no longer obeying what the DNC says. Think about Houston's mayor, or is it Dallas? Johnson used to be part of the Democratic Party. Actually, it was Dallas, in fact. Mayor Johnson left the Democratic Party. Why did he leave? Because they were telling him what to say, and they told him, shut up, do what we say, obey, keep your head down, and just follow orders. And he said no, because it wasn't good for his constituents. They demonized the hell out of him, and now they're trying to replace him. We see this over and over and over again. People who leave the left often say it's because there is no freedom. It's just obedience to the machine. And so when you see someone, no one's been higher profile about leaving the left than RFK Jr. over the last year, 2 years. And again, they did this to him. All he wanted was a debate. He just wanted to run in the primary. That's all he wanted. It was the Democrat leadership that said, there is no such thing as a debate. You don't get that. Primary? You don't get that. We've already picked a choice. It's going to be the Joe Biden, the part-time zombie president that we now know, they knew since 2020 was someone who was afflicted with mental disorders.
Yes.
And they didn't care. And so RFK is the bad guy because he said, I still think I can do better than a part-time zombie who has a mental illness. And that's why they hate him.
No, I got you. No, Michael, you hit the nail on the head there with the RFK Jr. analysis. I have a couple other questions to get to, if you don't mind. If you're just joining us, Michael Vass is with us here on the MatthewJ Show. Welcome aboard. We are also live on YouTube and Rumble. Now, Michael, the next thing I'm going to bring up to you, happening in New York also, is Escalator Gate. Now, Trump going to the UN. Now, I actually watched this. I watched it from Jump Street. And I watched when President Trump and First Lady got on the escalator and it stopped abruptly. And Trump looked pretty pissed off. And then subsequently, when he got up to the podium, his teleprompter didn't work, the mic. And then the previous two people, from what I understand, it did work. Now, from what I can ascertain, a day or two before it, UN staff and whatnot were joking about these very same things that happened. Some saying, oh, no, Trump's staff hit the stop button, all that. I didn't see that. Michael, has it gotten this divisive around the world? Has TDS infected that, even including the UN staff, that these things happen and they were intentional? Or am I over magnifying these things?
No, of course. They hate. Okay. The leadership of many of these countries are left-leaning or dependent on left-leaning countries. So you got most of Africa, most of the third world get their money from the first world. Most of the first world nations, you're talking about France, you're talking about Germany, you're talking about the United Kingdom, Canada, they're leftist. They are leftist and or progressive leaning, and they give the money out. So if you hear from these third world nations and they say, well, I don't agree with you. Yeah, they cut off the money, and those countries need the money. So they will support whatever France wants to say. They will support whatever England or Canada want to say. Why? They want the money. So it's not a surprise to me that when you go into the UN, well, Canada, the UK, France, they don't like Donald Trump because he represents the exact opposite of the socialism they have. And he's successful where they're not.
Michael, is it legitimate for the Secret Service to investigate the maintenance manager or whatever? And I'm not, as I said, I think this is a legit inquiry as far as if that was an intentional act where, I mean, you and I, we've been on elevators where if it stops abruptly, sometimes people get injured with this. If that was determined to be an intentional act, I think the Secret Service and others, I think people should be charged there. They think it's a laughing matter. I don't. And, you know, I don't see like a lot of focus on it. I know the Trump administration, I know the Carolyn Levitt, the White House spokesperson, she's been talking about it. I'm not going to let it slide. You know, he's the leader of the free world and his wife, and they think something like that's funny where they potentially could have been injured.
Well, two things to that. I know. I keep saying that. Two things. These things are deeper than what they may seem on the surface. Was this planned? Yes, it was meant to embarrass and to discomfort President Trump. That seems pretty obvious. They laughed about it. They had someone said it, and then they said, you know, that's a great idea, and they did it. Okay. Bad. It wasn't funny, and it was problematic. Can the Secret Service investigate the United States? Sure. Will anything happen? No, because the UN is a separate entity, and we won't be able to follow through with it.
Are you talking about jurisdiction, Michael?
Yeah.
The UN's not part of New York. Technically, it's not part of New York City.
No. It's kind of like embassies. It's a separate entity all its own. So we won't be able to.
So we can't investigate. We can't investigate is what you're saying.
No, we can investigate. We have no authority to do anything beyond the investigation. We would submit the investigation to the Secretary General of the United Nations, and they'll throw it into a furnace and no one cares.
Michael,
That's all we can do.
Should we get out of the UN?
Probably. Doesn't really matter if we are in it or not. Doesn't matter. First of all, if we get out, they're going to have to move the UN out of the United States. They won't let that happen because no one wants to pay the bill for running the UN because the U.S. is spending tens of millions of dollars we lose every year on running the UN in our nation, on top of the fact that it is a den of spies. This is a fact. That this is not a question. This isn't me being hyped. Plenty of studies have been done. Every nation has a spy, at least one, working in their government. This is every country that is in part of the UN staffing. Just like in many embassies, there are many spies and are part of the staff of every country. Every country does this. They get to use the status as part of the embassy or part of the UN staff to be able to do things more easily. They don't want to give up any of that. They will they'll throw out somebody. If it came down to that and Trump was going to leave, they'll throw someone on their sword and say, here's somebody, go punish them. We'll remove their official status or give them an equivalent punishment as the United States and throw this under a bus and move on. It's as annoying as it may be. It is not the biggest news.
Michael, you're right. I just figured I'd put that in there. Listen, Michael, we're adjacent, both of us, to New Jersey. I'm in Pennsylvania. You're in New York. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the governor's race, where you have Jack Shirelli, if I can pronounce his name right, and you have, I think her first name is Sherry, the
Shirelli?
Yeah, Shirelli, the Democrat candidate that apparently is caught in some type of a naval scandal that when she graduated from the Naval Academy in 94, she was not able to walk with her class due to allegedly some type of a cheating scandal. And I think there's something else, some other financial scandal rolling around as well. Mm-hmm. Now, the latest polling, Michael, is saying both are at 43%.
Yeah.
Do you think New Jersey's in play?
Yes, and it has been. And it was a target. It was targeted to be in play. Republicans have been working on New Jersey for a year. A lot of people don't know this. Politics is not like the news media. Political campaigns are 18 months ahead of any election. So right now, the public is thinking, oh my God, the election season started because Labor Day starts the election season, for lack of better wording, for the normies, for the average person in America. The average person in the year of the election starts paying attention in Labor Day. Political junkies start at the beginning of year, January of 2025. They started paying attention to the 2025 elections. Those who are involved in politics, commentators, pundits, people running campaigns, or the candidates themselves, they started 18 months ago. We are right now in the middle of the 2026 election cycle, not 2025. For political commentators, for people in politics, we're in 2026. The public's talking about 20. We already figured that out. We're well past this. No one cares. So that changes the viewpoint of what's going on. Republicans have been in New Jersey and trying to encourage Republicans at the same time that Democrats have been failing their own people. And we have seen the evidence, the reality of their policies and of their ideology. And they just lose and lose and lose. People aren't motivated. Because what is there, if you're a Democrat, and there's a lot of Democrats in New Jersey, what are you motivated by? Let's see. We want more of the Democrats that supported Bidenomics, which gave me 22% unemployment. Bidenomics, the Biden-Harris White House and Democrats supporting the suppression of the First Amendment, strong-arming YouTube and X and Facebook and Google to hide the truth from you and me, and to hide our voices when we talked about the truth. You want more of that in New Jersey? Is that really what you want? Are you sure about that? Does that sound like a great idea? Oh, and if you happen to speak up, if you somehow slip through the cracks, you get through and you're spoken, you could either be ostracized and thrown into and labeled a traitor like RFK Jr. and punished that way, or you may be the target of some lunatic that goes around. Remember, it's not just the autonomous zones. They'll go to your college, they'll burn it down. How many arsons have we seen surrounding the leftist ideology? They'll come out and they'll protest, they'll break your cars, they'll block your streets, they'll try and burn down your building, your business, and or attack you directly, because 38% of the progressives think that it is justified to lethally attack their political enemies. That's not just Republicans. It's their enemies. Anyone who thinks differently.
Michael, how big of a deal? How big of a deal if Jack prevails here and the Republican, our candidate wins there in New Jersey? Does that have national implications?
No, I would like it to. No, it doesn't. Just means that, okay, they lost. It's good to have a governor, and we want governors, and we do have the majority of governors on the right. That is encouraging for others to join, not just Republicans, but right-leaning, conservatives, libertarians, third parties. It helps to motivate people to get out of the I have to vote blue no matter who, even when they are objectively the worst candidate in the race. So it's a good thing. But without the legislature with that governor, you have limited power. Yeah, the governor will say, I want to do X. And the legislature will say, no. And so you go nowhere. But you can win. That governor can help to motivate people to elect different people, eventually to the legislature, to the Congress, and then you get the real change. But that usually, it's a longer process than just we elected somebody.
No, I agree with you, Michael. Listen, I got to get a couple more questions in for you.
Sure.
I got quite a number of pages here still. You mentioned this actually about 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to read it real quick. Google announced YouTube accounts permanently banned for political speech would be eligible for reinstatement. And the tech giant acknowledges past pressure from Biden administration to remove COVID-19 related content. Michael, is this a better late than never situation with Google and YouTube, or is this the new sheriff in town scenario?
Neither. It's them giving you a piece of candy. This is giving candy to babies before you steal them. That's it. This is sugarcoating. Sugarcoating on a very disgusting item that they've given to you. So you swallow it and they'll just move on. Because let's think about what they've actually said. Oh, we destroyed the First Amendment, which is illegal, of American citizens because we were illegally empowering a government, a president who had overstepped his legal bounds. And we won't tell anyone. They didn't tell anyone. They have 4 years. They could have leaked it to any newspaper, and they didn't. They didn't leak the documents. They didn't leak the information. Why? Because they supported the Democrats. And, they're only hurting Republicans and conservatives, so they don't care. Now that there's someone else, they're saying, we're mea culpa. Oh, we're so sorry, but it's not our fault. Don't hold it against us. Yes, it is your fault. Because you not only did you comply, you complied willingly, and you helped to promote this, knowing that it was disadvantageous to the public. I mean, there's a good reason to not vote for a Democrat, knowing that they're restricting your freedom of speech, that they are actually conspiring against you, the average American citizen. That's a great reason not to vote Democrat.
Well, Michael, how about the manipulating searches during elections, like in 2016 with Hillary Clinton and President Trump, where you would have all the top of the stuff for Hillary, and then Trump would be way, way down there. So do they have the power? It's yes. Now, Michael, is there any chance of, do you support it possibly being broken up, a monopoly like that?
Well, now we have, I believe it was Representative Chris Murphy. Representative Chris Murphy out of Connecticut has now threatened that if Democrats get power, they're going to destroy the monopolies. They're going to go after all of the social media companies and break them up. If you were so bloody well concerned about that, why didn't you do it when you had power? We just came off of 4 years. You didn't care about that. You cared about controlling that monopoly because it was easy. And it was easier to go to one meeting, yell at the heads of YouTube and Google, and then you didn't have to talk to all the other companies. And that got your propaganda out there. Now that you've been exposed, we didn't know. Yes, you did. You ran ads, Chris Murphy. The Democrats ran ads on Google. You saw the search engine results change. You knew about this, and you didn't care. So this false image of we're going to protect the American people. No, you aren't, you liar. You are, and I'm telling you, Chris Murphy, I am calling you a liar. That you're not being serious, and you're not putting in context the situation to voters. You're just trying to virtue signal so you get some extra money for your next re-election campaign. That's what I truly believe. Now, that being said, how is this going to impact everyone? Well, think about it. Well, Alex Jones already came back. He's already gone. Why? Because they don't like Alex Jones. It's not about free speech. If it was about free speech, you'd have let Alex Jones come back and let him actually say something. All he said is, hey, guys, I'm back on YouTube. I'll figure out something to tell you a little bit later. And they got rid of him. Why? Because it was never about free speech. It's about their political preference. What about all the smaller channels, these names that they're not telling you about, that they didn't reactivate? And what about the people they suppressed? My channel in particular, I'll point to me. There's a Hard Lens Media. That's a leftist channel. There's Larry Sharp. He's a libertarian. These are a couple people I know off the top of my head that were being suppressed. Sabby Sabs, another leftist, being suppressed. What about all the views we should have had for years now that we didn't get? How about all the money we were supposed to get from the YouTube partner program that we didn't get? YouTube made the ads. They still got advertising. They made money. Right. We didn't. No one's getting that back. Okay, you had a YouTube channel 3 years ago, and you are making, I don't know, $50, $500, $5,000, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, whatever it is. They got rid of you. And you had, I don't know, say you had 100 videos up there. I have almost 3,000. I have 2,700. 2,700. My average video is 45 minutes. I have hundreds, literally hundreds, if not thousands of videos that are 5 hours long. YouTube,
watch them.
Yeah, I know. And then there's my birthday, which is 12 hours by itself. So imagine YouTube, and I got very close. They gave me a couple of strikes. They were threatening to delete me completely in 2021, 2022, multiple times.
Right.
If they had deleted all of that, now, mind you, I made a lot of backups, but I don't have 100% backed up. And it's out on Rumble and other things. If they delete all that and say, okay, you can come back now. Okay, I come back with 0. I don't have any of those subscribers. I'm coming back with none of those videos, that content that people were looking at. And now I have to compete from 0 and start back up. Really?
Right. No, I got you. No, Michael, that interesting, certainly discussion. Listen, as we wrap up the show now, Michael, I want you to convey to the audience, if you can, what you have been very happy with as far as the Trump agenda, and maybe some of the things that you would like to see get better or be expedited. What is the first question, overall grade, and how do you see things progressing as we move forward in the Trump presidency, second presidency?
I think the agenda so far, and we're only in month 8 of the presidency of Donald Trump as the 47th president, I think he's done exceptionally well. He's been on track to accomplish an overwhelming majority of the promises he made on the campaign trail in 2024. And that's so much so that he's a standout from what we normally see in presidents.
Right.
That's great. And we should see that. And he's been very focused, both internationally and nationally. Again, we have more countries that are either peaceful now or leaning towards peacefulness than we had under the Biden administration. You know, when India and Pakistan were talking about, I want to drop nukes on each other, you know who they went to? They went to Donald Trump to resolve that. They didn't go to Joe Biden. They could have. They didn't go all up Kamala Harris. She could have flown out there. They went to Donald Trump. So, and that's just one example. Cambodia and Thailand also had a similar situation. Trump, they went to Trump. They could have gone to anyone else. They went to Trump. And we have peace there. Everyone, the media likes to focus on Hamas, and they like to focus on Israel because they don't like Israel, and they are perfectly fine with the terrorists of Hamas. But there's more to the world than just that one place.
Yes.
And there's a lot more of what's being done. So I think he's done great. What we may see is he's been moving at lightning speed, or as fast as he can, in these 8 months, because once he hits the midterm elections, unless Republicans win, that ends his program.
Yes.
He's not going to be able to accomplish anything else going forward if Congress is not in Republican hands, and he knows it. So he's been trying to get, and I think that's part of the problem. He's been moving so fast with so many things. Not only is it difficult for him, but the public isn't understanding. Most people have not absorbed everything that's happened. They haven't understood the consequences of everything that's been done so far and the long-term benefit, because the media doesn't want you to think about it, and they want you to think Orange Man bad. But so longer term, I'm not sure. It depends a lot on the midterms. If Republicans win, he'll be able to go all the way until the last day and push his agenda. If he loses, then the entire movement, MAGA and MAHA, so Make America Great and Make America Healthy, end.
Michael, you do see the continuation of lawfare with respect to these activist judges going after every executive order that President Trump issues. You think that will continue unabated?
Yes, except they know now they have to do it in a different way, which is harder because the Supreme Court has already said, and Joe Average can't stop the presidential order because he had a feeling. You can't do that. You need
Right.
precedent, you need a reason, and it has to be local. And so that makes it harder. But Democrats are going to they're going to do what Democrats do. They have to push Orange Man bad because what else do they have to offer?
Right.
What plan? They have no plan. They have no personality to push forward. So Orange Man bad has to be.
I got you. It's well said, Michael. I'm hoping the best for the Trump agenda, the MAGA agenda, the America First agenda. We saw the results of the November 2024 election. I think that people want change. They want change, for a country that we can prosper, that our borders are secure, and potentially get us out of some of these overseas endeavors and just focus on America.
Well, it's like I'll give a great example for people who may not be familiar. And this is leave the big cities alone. Binghamton, New York, which I used to live at for 20 years. I ran for Broome County legislator. I ran for the New York 22nd congressional race. In Binghamton right now, there's a mayoral race right now. And I know the Republican, I think I've also met the Democrat. The Democrat in the race right now he was an operative for the Democratic Party in Albany, was sent over to Broome County so that he could run for the mayor's race. And he's running now. And it has just been disclosed. There's video evidence of this. He's racist. This isn't like my opinion. Again, there is video evidence, and he has responded to that video evidence of him being a racist and said, well, I was around poor people in the Bronx, so it's really not that bad. Obviously, I know what they think, and so I should be okay. Again, he's equated black people as poor. Same thing that Joe Biden does, same thing that most Democrats do. Poor equals black, which is stupid. And again, that's racist. This is the Democratic Party right now. This is the best thing they have to offer. An individual who is openly lying to the public. He lied about his age, said he was 14. He was 17 when he did this. And someone who is openly racist, making openly racist statements, and they're the ones purporting to represent everyone, black people, minorities, and they're failing. They are abject failures. Folks, pay attention to these details. Only you can stop this. That means you have to vote.
Right. Yeah. We are certainly living in challenging times, Michael, but I think, we probably learned a lot from the horrific assassination also of Charlie Kirk. And, I don't think we're going to have like this wacky Colorado Governor Cox when he came out in a couple hours after the assassination of Charlie Kirk saying, no, it's got to be unity. We've got to have unity here. And he's the same guy that was promoting pronouns in first grade for all Utah first graders and a big supporter of LGBTQ and a lot of the trans movement. And I don't know how this guy's a Republican, but no,
Republican in name only.
Yeah, exactly. We have to stand by our principles and what we believe will move our nation forward. And I know you've put out a lot of good things tonight. Michael, where can the Matthew J. Show followers find your great work?
Generally, you can go to, if you type in no Soundbites, that's with an I, allowed, in any search engine, my stuff will come up and you can follow that. Or you can go and type that into Rumble or YouTube, and you'll find me. Or you can type in Michael Vass, and I am searchable in every search engine. The AIs, ChatGPT actually does have. You type in my name, I actually pop up. Nice. They know who I am. That tells you,
Michael, you gonna be on this Sunday?
Oh yeah, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m.
I'm going to be in Atlantic. I'll be in Atlantic City, but I'm going to listen to you down there.
Okay. But anyone can. Every Sunday for the last 8 years, I do a show at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time People can type in, give me comments, or super chat and all that stuff. And I cover kind of like what we did here, except I do it usually in 5 hours, not just 2. And I provide sources.
Michael, you do a great job on that. And as I said, that someday you're going to hopefully teach me some of these techniques. I've got to get stuff up there. I got to be producing articles and some clips. I'm way behind. Maybe I'm showing my age as far as knowing tech, but I've got to get into the real world in 2025. But I so much appreciate, Michael, when you come on the show, because you're able to get complex issues and break them down so they're digestible for the Matthew J. Show audience and everybody that is watching tonight. We had a pretty big audience tonight. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the program. And of course, you're always welcome. And I will definitely be in touch with you because obviously there's breaking news practically every day. And I need somebody there to break it down with me.
It's only going to get more hectic, folks. Going into the midterms, only going to get more hectic.
I hear you. All right. Well, Michael, have a great night and also have a great weekend. And thanks for joining us again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Have a great night, Mike.